When I pulled into my own gravel driveway at 2:14 in the morning, headlights flickering off muddy potholes, 3 days' worth of mountain dust still clinging to my boots, the last thing I expected was to see a parade of tipsy suburban wine moms, some wearing sequin shawls, some carrying half-eaten tacos, belting out, "I Will Survive" from the depths of my living room like they were auditioning for American Idol. Picture it. Twinkle lights I'd never seen before strung across my porch, a taco truck churning out greasy carnitas in the middle of my grass, and some strangers soaking in my hot tub with a white claw, draped in what was unmistakably my favorite flannel bathrobe. You know what I mean? I just stood there, frozen, 1 foot out of my truck, trying to process if I'd accidentally wandered onto a movie set or some deranged bachelorette party. Before my brain could catch up, a blinding flashlight beamed right in my eyes, and a voice barked at me to get out of the vehicle. Turns out, someone had already called 911, reporting a prowler, and the prowler was me. Welcome home, right? That call had come from none other than HOA Vice President Gretchen Sloan herself, who had told the dispatcher my address, with all the righteous fury of a woman who's memorized every clause in the bylaws and still finds time to police your mailbox decor. So now, here I was, just trying to get the hiking mud off my pants, staring at two cops with their hands hovering near their holsters, who clearly believed they'd stumbled onto some kind of Breaking Bad hideout. Let me back up a sec, because this mess didn't start tonight, and honestly, it wasn't even about the party. It was about control. I'm Wes Darnell, 38, a stonemason with dirt permanently wedged under my fingernails, and I inherited this old log cabin up in Hickory Knoll Estates from my granddad 5 years ago. Hickory Knoll isn't the kind of place you'd find on a tourist map. It's sleepy and a little weird. Mailboxes are shaped like bears. Every third driveway has a pickup with a suspiciously shiny lawnmower, and the main community hobby is outdoing each other's leaf blowers at exactly 7 a.m. on Saturdays. I keep to myself, grow a few tomatoes on my porch, fix up the stone walls around town for a living, keep the place clean. I don't do HOA pancake breakfasts or the monthly casserole potlucks, mostly because I like my privacy and I prefer my pancakes not to taste like rubber. But if you ask Gretchen, my avoidance of the social scene makes me a serial killer in the making. Yeah, that's what she said at the last meeting I was forced to attend, for a septic compliance review, where she described my house as having serial killer chic and told me my beard was hurting the community's optics. All delivered in her Lululemon finest, holding a clipboard like a badge of honor. Thing is, I'm technically not part of the HOA. My property is what they call a legacy lot. Thanks to Granddad's paperwork, I'm not required to join or pay dues. That little legal quirk drives Gretchen absolutely bananas. I mean, her whole personality is enforcing rules and calling emergency board meetings about decorative inconsistencies. She can't stand that someone on her street just doesn't have to listen to her. So she declared war. First, there were the friendly notices, smiley face stickers on my door telling me my grass looked too natural, or complaining about the lack of a festive wreath on my chimney in December, or, my personal favorite, a warning about improper wood stacking aesthetics. Like, I'm supposed to make my firewood look like a Pottery Barn catalog? I ignored her because, well, I thought I could. But she escalated. Suddenly, the HOA newsletter started running concerned resident spotlights, always with blurry photos of me, usually taken when I was hauling groceries or watering my tomatoes, with captions like, "Is this what we want for our neighborhood?" As if I'm trafficking contraband zucchini. It got weirder. Gretchen called animal control on my basil. Seriously, she claimed it was attracting an aggressive bee population. Then she organized what she called property audits, a polite term for a squad of nosy neighbors with clipboards snooping around my porch, measuring the height of my grass, photographing my mailbox, and arguing about whether my doormat was seasonally appropriate. They'd show up when I was at work, scurrying around like raccoons in tennis shoes, snapping pictures of my compost bin. At this point, I was almost impressed by her commitment. But the real breaking point came when I took a much-needed break, a 3-day hiking trip out in the national forest, just me and the wind and the pine needles. I'd been busting my back restoring a stone wall in town, and I needed to clear my head. Before I left, I locked every window, set my security cameras to record everything, and headed out. Unbeknownst to me, Gretchen, who has the uncanny ability to track everyone's schedule down to the minute, realized my truck was gone and immediately decided my place was perfect for the annual HOA Spring Social Sip and Sing Gala. Only, I'd never heard of it, and sure as heck hadn't volunteered to host. Now, here's where it gets truly wild. Somehow, Gretchen had a key to my cabin. I never gave her one. Never hid a spare under a rock. She must have had it cut from a lock I changed years ago, or maybe she just charmed the old locksmith. I'll never know. Either way, the security footage would later show her unlocking my door less than 4 hours after I left, marching in with a squad of HOA diehards, hauling in boxes of wine, decorations, and what looked like enough cheese platters to feed a football team. When I got home in the middle of the night, police already waiting, Gretchen had already spun some tale about a trespasser threatening the sanctity of community property. And the cops, bless their hearts, believed her. For about 5 minutes. There I was, standing in my own yard, handcuffed next to a flamingo eye sculpture that was melting all over my hand-built coffee table, while women in sun hats danced around my kitchen and the DJ blasted Sweet Caroline off my deck. I kept it cool, told the officers this was my house, showed them my ID, pulled up the tax records, even pointed to the old family photos on the wall. Gretchen was still performing for the crowd, insisting I was trespassing on communal space. But when I mentioned the security cameras, I swear her tan went 3 shades paler. I scrolled back through the footage on my phone, and, clear as day, there she was, unlocking my front door, directing people like she was hosting the Oscars. The cops watched, mouths open, as I played them the tape. Right about then, the police radios started lighting up. Noise complaints, parking violations, neighbors angry about blocked driveways, someone reporting illegal commercial activity because of the taco truck. The DJ didn't have a permit for loud music after 10. It was one violation after another, all courtesy of Gretchen's little coup. Then came the twist. One of the officers, a local guy with a good memory, squinted at Gretchen and asked if she used to run the Cedar Pine HOA. Turns out, he'd investigated her 3 years ago for, get this, embezzling HOA funds for her own landscaping. The old board had quietly pushed her out rather than press charges, but now, standing on my porch, it was clear to everyone she hadn't changed. Within minutes, she was being escorted off my property, sequin shawl fluttering, ranting about sacred communal gatherings and destroying the spirit of the neighborhood. The party guests vanished, leaving behind half-eaten snacks, plastic cups, and at least 3 designer handbags. The taco truck driver apologized. He'd been told this was an official event. Next morning, running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, I called my lawyer, Talia Chong. Talia is a legend when it comes to mountain property disputes, and she's got a personal grudge against HOA abuse. When I showed her the security footage, she practically cackled. Within 2 days, she'd filed a restraining order against Gretchen and launched a lawsuit for trespassing, breaking and entering, property damage, and intentional emotional distress. Meanwhile, the rest of the HOA board, who genuinely had no clue about Gretchen's scheme, called an emergency meeting. Apparently, she'd been telling everyone the board unanimously approved, using my cabin as a venue, which was a total lie. They voted to suspend her, then sent me a formal apology, which I accepted, but made it real clear I still wasn't joining the HOA. The next week was just cleanup and discovery. The hot tub needed to be drained and cleaned after someone dumped a whole bottle of bubble bath in it. My grandmother's antique rug was ruined, red wine ground deep into the fibers. Kitchen cabinets had been rearranged for reasons only God and drunken party planners understand. Heel marks everywhere. I found my bathrobe in a bush 20 feet from the hot tub and tossed it out without asking questions. I built a 10-foot privacy fence, installed new locks, and put up a sign that said, "No HOA zone. Trespassers prosecuted." Added extra cameras, too, so now my phone buzzes if a squirrel so much as sneezes on my property. 6 weeks later, court day rolls around. I'm in my only suit. Talia's got binders of evidence, and we've got everything. Video of Gretchen unlocking my door, photos of the mess, witness statements from guests who thought she lived there, receipts for every damaged thing. But Talia, being Talia, goes all out. We even submitted DNA evidence from a shrimp cocktail Gretchen abandoned at my coffee table. Overkill? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. The judge, An older woman with the air of someone who's seen 1,000 petty squabbles calls it the boldest act of suburban trespass she's seen in her career. She absolutely reams Gretchen for her stunning disregard for private property, sentences her to 18 months of house arrest with an ankle monitor, no more galas, no more pancake breakfasts, and bars her from serving in any HOA anywhere in the state for a decade. She also has to pay $27,000 for the damage, cleaning, and emotional distress, which was honestly the cherry on top. When the verdict came down, Gretchen's face matched the rose she'd spilled all over my antique rug, and she let out a gasp that made the bailiff step forward, thinking she was about to faint. The whole courtroom kind of held its breath. Everyone knows what Gretchen's like, but nobody ever thought she'd actually face consequences. You'd think that would be the end, right? But out here, in places like Hickory Knoll, stories don't just end. There are still whispers about me being difficult or anti-community. And I know there are a few folks who still secretly think Gretchen was just trying to bring us together. Maybe next year they'll elect someone even worse. Or maybe, just maybe, people will remember why boundaries matter. So here's my question for you. Where do you draw the line between community and control? When does neighborly concern cross over into something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever tangled with an HOA nightmare or dealt with a neighbor who just couldn't mind their own business? I'd love to hear your story. And hey, if you ever need advice on privacy fences or DNA shrimp, you know where to find me.